access, so they can see how many books you're reading, how often you're reading. You can look at how their vocabulary and comprehension is improving. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I've heard this
Yeah.
term say,
And
I
it
always
does, yeah.
wondered
Yeah.
what that was. So you all can ask questions too.
We know you were waiting until you were done.
No,
you
keep
were
going
good.
because I'm kind of, I mean, I can ask if you want me to ask. Okay, I'll ask you. I'll be quick.
Just keep going.
I'm not giving you wait time. The summer learning program, what is our, this is a question for you. The summer learning program that Dr. Jones does is, and I thought about this actually when we were at the conference, is it in any way related to some of the changes we've made with our K2 or not? Like, will there be, like, so we rolled out foundations. Will there be foundations of that, or is it, how does that all?
That would be a good question for Dr. Jones. I don't know exactly what his plans are
I know
for rolling that forward.
Michael, who was it?
Jonas.
Yeah, Jonas.
So I did have a conversation with him a year or two back before he left, and they were piloting one year they piloted foundations. I don't know what happened with that, but they don't really have a program as such, and I would like to see maybe either foundations being more intense or
So they don't have anything structured.
There is a program that the
Yes.
summer program uses. It is a comprehensive program that includes all 5 components of reading and literacy instruction. So it has the phonics and the phonemic awareness pieces, but it also has comprehension and fluency and vocabulary as well. And it's structured for a summer school schedule because it's a shortened, condensed, more intensive set of materials because it recognizes it's just that short amount of time for summer school. So those pieces are in place. My question for Dr. Jones would be, which I think what your question is, how are we going to partner some of the foundations work that these students have been receiving, K-1-2, into now this summer program?
Yeah.
I think that's a valid question. I know Dr. Jones is really invested in the foundations materials and in the Wilson reading system because he has recently purchased that for the success teachers and is going to send teachers, at least one per success team per building. At the elementary level, we'll go and get Wilson, not Wilson certified, but we'll get Wilson training from the Wilson trainers this summer. So I know he's invested in what we're doing. I just haven't talked to him to know what the specific steps are in terms of how he's going to marry those two pieces together.
Okay.
So I can't answer that.
That's good news.
Okay.
We've been working hard over here. We've been good.
I know, and we recognize that you guys have made a lot of steps in that direction.
We love the idea of partnering with you. We want to make sure that we're all working towards student needs.
I'm in awe with this presentation. This was perfect. It was well thought out. You brought out really good points. 3rd grade implementation, we have it to 2nd. I think that is the logical next step. That is something that it can be done. I love that you it's a collaborative effort. That it's not about it's about the children. And you made a good point. Your kids are going to be fine, and they will be. And it's just the parents or the kids that they're not here, right? So I'm impressed. I'm all in. You have my time. You have my support. This is, like we say in Chile, ahora es cuando. Now it's when. Let's do it. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question about the CTOP. You talked about it's a screener, I think is what you said?
Yep.
Is it screening for dyslexia? Is it screening just for reading difficulty?
It's screening for those 3 things that it identifies, and
how is it different from our FAST screener that the state requires us to use?
I would say like a FAST is kind of a temperature, whether something's wrong or whether it's all right, while CTOP kind of deep dives in there and it lets you kind of
So it's more diagnostic?
Yes.
Okay,
So
and targeted?
Yeah, it really looks at, because those are the 3, research shows that those 3 areas are gold standard for identifying struggling readers. So if you've got a deficit in all 3 areas, then you are seriously a struggling reader, and that kid needs really intensive instruction. And like they said, they broke it down into double, triple, double, and your phonemic awareness. So if you do that, then you're honing in on the areas that those kids need. And if you use an Orton Gillingham-based program like Foundations or Wilson, then those kids have got a better start. And you can use it in the upper grades, which is great. And then those kids, if we use it in the school district for all of our kids, and that would be expensive, but if we picked out our most struggling readers to start with, we could really get in there and help those upper grade kids as well, who haven't had the benefit of foundations. So,
Understood. I'm
yeah.
concerned, and interested maybe is a better word, in knowing that the state requires us to give the FAST.
Right.
And knowing that we're giving the quick phonics screener additionally right now. Right now, just K1, 2, but I know there are a couple places where they're giving it to older kids with some people that have been trained just to get some more diagnostic data to make some decisions instructionally. We also have benchmarking. So even
Right.
at K2, we've got already 3 assessments
Right.
which assess different things for different purposes. So I'm intrigued to see what the CTOP looks like what the actual moves of the assessment look like, what the
Right.
data looks like, how similar or different it is from where we're already gathering.
Right.
Because I feel pretty confident in the 3 assessments that we're giving now to identify students who are struggling. But I'm intrigued to see what the CTOP looks like and if it can provide something else. And if it can, then I think the question becomes, what are we going to release? Because having 4 assessments,
Right. Yeah.
really assessing similar reading pieces, again, they're different, but they're all in the same ballpark. That feels like overkill to me. So
Right.
is there something we let go of,
And I would
knowing that we can't let go of the
I
facts?
don't know, and we don't know enough about the school district's assessment, but I feel confident that FAST and CTOP would be 2 that would be really, because you have to do FAST. There's no way
Correct.
out of that one.
It's required
I
by
don't know
law.
about the
Mhm.
benchmarking one, whether that has to be done, but I know you have to have 2 or.
So the
3.
benchmarking doesn't have to be done, but it's the one assessment that's measuring something beyond word level
Right.
reading. It's
Right.
looking at connected text and comprehension,
Right, so
and so it's
yeah.
assessing something different.
Yeah.
So if we let go of that, it would take an assessment off our plate and time out of another assessment, but it
So-
wouldn't give us
And I
different
guess-
information.
I guess for CTOP, I guess, this doesn't all have to be done now, but I guess what we'd like to see is like our kindergarten and first graders being tested with it. Then you're testing after that your kindergartners and your struggling readers,
Mhm.
the ones that are kind of flagged. Or you could just test your struggling readers to find more in depth. Not all kids have to have it done perhaps, or, it's something that could be.
So in kindergarten or first grade, when they're giving it to all students, is it just one time? They get the
Yes,
assessment
at
one
the
time a
beginning
year?
At the beginning of the year and the beginning of both years. So you
Okay.
want to see what their progress is and where you need to divide them off in first grade do you see what I mean?
I do understand what you mean.
So
And-
our students get it just once, so it would be
Yeah.
once in kindergarten and once in first grade. It's not like the FAST that continues
Yeah,
with the
no, it's just a
process.
one-off. We just want to identify these kids, put them in these groups. And I know we have success and things like that, but kids seem to come and go from success. As they're beginning to do well in success, somebody else needs to go into success. So that kid's bumped out, they might come back in again. But if you have this consistent instruction, we've highlighted these kids, they need this intense instruction, then they progress through that intense instruction, and then maybe they don't need it in first grade. But, these are the kids that really, really, really need it.
Yeah, another thing to note too is if you catch it in kindergarten and first grade as opposed to like 4th or 5th, it takes a lot less interventions to actually get that student back on track. And if you catch it in 4th or 5th, it just takes a lot more work for that student to get to that. And then by then, they've probably already developed anxiety and stuff about reading, which, just interferes even
All
more.
our 5th graders
Yes.
who weren't identified until 5th grade, their school is a.
It'll be really interesting to see after we have foundations, for some of our K1 kids,
I think it'll.
what the
make a huge
tone
difference.
feels like in 4th and
Yeah.
5th grade after they've
Yeah.
had that foundation and that experience and that confidence and that great instruction.
Well, an example, my son, who's now in 6th grade, I can't remember how many days absence he had from kindergarten through 5th grade. I
Mhm.
lost count. He did he did Spartan up
Mhm.
until it was level 6 he completed at the end of 5th grade. We have not had one absent day in 6th grade. He is a happy-go-lucky kid.
That's great.
He changed his attitude to school and his personality. So it's super important that we get these kids, it's.
Well, and I think that's why we need this collaborative committee so that we can really dive into these issues of what you already have and what might be the best thing and figure out where they overlap and.
That was the most notable thing to me in your presentation was as you got, I think you were speaking about, so here's what we'd like, these 6 pieces or whatever, and I was checking out, yep, I think we got that, I think we got that, I think we got that, but
Right.
just having the opportunity to be able to say, hey, we got that, we're
Right.
working on that, we've got a
Right.
compass plan that we're working on getting set up for
Right.
next year, you know?
Right, and that would be
Having the two-way communication
Yeah.
might be a big step in
and also just
making progress.
then we can see your perspective, and then you can also see our perspective from parents who have struggling readers and know what it's like. I mean, you can see it from classroom perspective, but we see it at home and the impact it's having on our kids and other kids that, you know, are moving up through grades. We wonder about kids who are, you know, you worry about behavioural issues in middle school. You know, I wonder how many of those kids are not reading very well, or our achievement gap. How many of those kids aren't reading well, and is that why we've got an achievement gap? It affects all subjects. So, you know, I really think that we can help each other.
It feels beyond animosity, and it's beyond like, you're not doing this, you're not doing this.
Yeah.
It's just, we're past that.
Yeah.
It's collaborative work.
Yeah.
You know, one of the concerns I've had for a long time is what's most needed is that assessment.
Right.
Because unless you're lucky enough to have a teacher who says something's just not right,
Right.
or, you know, a parent that says, I'm gonna have my kid tested, or suggested that the teacher says, have your kid taken and have tested, you know, it doesn't happen anywhere else. So I think we can really, by using some type of assessment at kindergarten, first grade, address things so that we don't have students, you know, being identified as late as 5th, 6th, and sometimes 7th grade, or never. They never get diagnosed as dyslexia, but
They
in
just
reality.
think they're not as smart as everybody else.
Exactly.
Well, but a lot of, most students, the problem is that most students who have dyslexia are very bright.
Yep.
Right.
And so
They
they
figure
don't
ways
get, so
to-
both of my children had, one of them had kind of a behavioral issue. And she was covering, so my daughter covered up her dyslexia with behavioral issues in a negative way, and my son covered up his dyslexia by acting out, by being the funny kid in the class. So he was so funny and charming and bright, you know, and so his didn't get diagnosed till 4th grade because he was so funny, but brilliant. And then my daughter, she got in trouble. And so there are probably hundreds of other kids in the school district where it's how they cover up their reading, because they're really smart kids, and that's how they cover it up.
Yeah, I'm forever thankful for the person that told me that my daughter might have dyslexia, and it was in the school district.
Yeah.
Because up until now, I've read her books every night. We've worked with her so much to read, and it just never stuck. And thing with dyslexic people, they have their working memory is really limited. So sometimes if you try to push them, they'll break down. That's what my daughter always did, break down. And you know, I got her the right instruction, and she went from reading 35 words a minute to like 120 now, and it's just in less than a year. It's just amazing what you get from that, and it's just one person pointed it out, and up until now I never thought about it. And I think there's a chance that there's parents out there that just have no idea what dyslexia is. People think it's switched up backwards letters, but it's really a processing neural anatomy issue, you know, so it's.
We just
Well,
don't have
that's-
the
that's-
finances either, that's the thing.
That's
We
my
don't know how
other
much we have to
concern.
spend on tutoring,
Yeah.
so, you know.
And there are maybe parents that might be thinking that, they don't have the wherewithal to have professionally tested.
Okay.
And then they don't have the financial wherewithal to go through with the tutor.
Well, they don't like
It's
the
very
stigma
costly.
related, they think there's a stigma related to labeling
Well,
the
that
child.
too.
So if we don't even
Yeah.
have to label them, we just identify them as struggling readers. Who cares whether they're dyslexic or not?
That's what my question was gonna
Yeah.
be. So this student CTOP.
It doesn't label them as dyslexic.
identifies,
Yeah.
it's the,
It's just struggling
it
readers.
just identifies the deficit areas that their instruction needs to be
Mhm.
at.
Yeah. It
does
So
not
that-
label them
that's
as
the goal of
dyslexic,
the-
yeah.
Yeah, so.
I think to combine that with what Mary was saying and also what Louis was saying is the CTOP, which is once a year. I'm a big fan of formative assessments, regular formative assessments to see growth. So it really comes back to, if that's something that's gonna help diagnose it early at the beginning of every school year, what are we gonna use, or what would be the best mechanism then for us to monitor the progress during the school year? So the next time you use it in 1st grade, it's not an autopsy.
Right, it's, yes.
It really is
And I
gonna
guess
measure
that's a
growth more.
question for Upper Arlington, because they did do 6 to 8 week progress monitoring. I don't know what they
What they
did,
use.
but you know, it would be nice if we could have a conversation with Upper Arlington. I mean, their parents sued their district. We don't plan to do that, but that's what they did to get change. So, and then they made all these things happen, and they got all this training done and everything like that. So they have a really good example of how it can work and data to support how it changed them. So,
Or what we're using now that would match up with that, that we can use during benchmarking, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not convinced yet that the CTOP is gonna give us a lot, significantly more information than what we already get from FAST.
That's why I'd like to see.
yeah,
But
I'm not
I'm
so
interested.
sure. I think FAST. I don't know.
Right.
FAST never identified my son as having a problem.
Yeah, and a
There was
second.
one time he was borderline, and they worked with him on a couple of things, not phonics stuff, not structured literacy, and he came up to passing. Nobody even ever told me that he had an issue, because he
So it
he
wasn't
almost
until
always
fifth grade
passed.
Until he was something, I'm
Fifth
just
grade, the
curious.
behavior started coming out.
Okay.
It got harder, he kind of hit a wall, where he just couldn't read and spell well enough to
Yeah,
tackle
understand
the.
more complex steps.
Right,
And it's-
and so the behavior started coming out, and the teacher didn't know what to do with him, so we had to do something.
What year did
So-
your son take FAST for the first time? Was he in
Oh, I don't
kindergarten
even
or
know.
first
No,
grade?
No, I think they were in third.
So the third grade FAST looks different than a kindergarten and
Right,
first grade
okay.
FAST.
Okay,
So there would be some other
So that
assessment
wasn't in place.
pieces. Correct.
okay.
So that was, really in third grade, they're looking at just rate. Can
Okay.
they read quickly? And we know we've got kids that, even kids who have dyslexia, who have a
Right.
really good memory
That's
of
my
words.
kid.
They've got a ton of
Right.
words. So your child wouldn't pop up on that assessment.
Sure, that makes
Um,
sense.
But I think the kindergarten and first grade assessments, which I'm interested, it might not be enough in comparison to CTOP, but I'm interested to see, in the early reading composite scores, they have nonsense words, they have onset sounds, there are pieces broken down into it. It's not what it looks like in second, third, fourth, fifth. So,
Okay,
I don't know, but if it doesn't identify the kids that we need it to identify, you're right, we need to think of something different. But I'm interested to see if that's really the case. I
FAST
don't
might
know.
just identify your phonemic awareness group versus your rapid naming and your phonological memory.
And
Which
that's
those two
possible.
Components are equally as important as the phonemic awareness.
Which is why I'd like to look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, so,
With the goal of comprehension.
yes, but you can't have that comprehension piece until you can actually read
Right.
fluently enough and all of that, but yeah. So but anyway, do you think, here is the question, do you think a task force, we don't have to call it a task force, we were playing with different names, a collaborative effort.
Actually, I think the term task force is perfect, because in our board structure, that's something that the board has the power to do, is periodically when needed, form task forces. And similar to our board committees, there can be up to 3 board members. The president is always a member, and then 2 other board members can serve on a task force along with whoever we would want to put on the task force.
Right. Okay.
So that's in our policy structure, would make perfect sense. And I'd be supportive of getting the ball rolling and having our first meeting before the end of the school year, if not 2.
That would be nice, because that's kind of, and so, when we were setting this up, we were speaking to people up in Gilbert as well, and they had a task force that didn't really.
What happened?
it
That was
just-
one of
it
my
just-
questions.
It just petered out.
Okay.
So we don't want that to happen. We really want to be, and I feel like our district is probably at a better point than their district. I think our district is very aware of dyslexia and us as well. We've been very involved in the last couple of years, so I think that we can make this group really work. But it just petered out. They didn't have, their teachers weren't, they felt like they were doing enough already. And the relationship kind of just fizzled out a little bit. So I hope that we can, yeah. So I'm
And
guessing
we really want to just be a supportive arm too.
Yeah, and I think
To help.
It reads, yeah.
I think we have enough, and we have resources too. I'm part of Decoding Dyslexia Iowa. I've been, I know people that can be supportive to this group that we can bring in. I've even spoken to the student services guy up in Upper Arlington, and I'm sure we could maybe even have a video conference with him, and he could kind of explain how they got things going in their district.
Talk to them right there on that screen.
Exactly.
And
I
get
mean,
some of the questions
Well, and they
answered.
have So I watched.
So we know if it's a good.
You sent it to me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the podcast, yeah, I had a video,
Yes.
yeah.
It was really interesting, very,
Right.
very informative.